Thank you very much. Welcome to this new way to present material on Route 66. I'm Roger, obviously, and I'll introduce Melissa when I finish. So if you'll, well, we don't have the slides yet. All right. Anyway, Melissa is, as I said, as she said, president of the editor of the Route 66 New Mexico magazine. So this comes out 4 times a year, and you can find out all kinds of good things about Route 66 and that. And Melissa is responsible for that. She's also the contact director of the New Mexico Route 66 City Byway. The order of presentation that I'll make will be this introduction. And okay, now we can go to the next one. And this is where we're at, order of presentation. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This is being recorded. I'll show you a website if you want to get more detailed information about Route 66. So you'll see that in the first few slides, I'll probably go through them fairly fast. So I'll have more time to spend with some of the history parts that I think are kind of fun to talk about. So the 2 groups that we're representing, I'm representing the American Society of Civil Engineers, and Melissa is representing her association. By the way, I'm a member of her association. So now, next. Okay, the American Society of Civil Engineers has been around since 1852. It's the oldest engineering organization of that kind. And you see a bunch of stuff there, 150,000 members and all of that. We're the people that work in the built environment, highways, structures, dams, oceans, rivers, things like that. So that's kind of what we do. You can read the details. But do you know what a civil engineer is? A civil engineer is an engineer that's out of a job, and that's the only time he or she is civil. Now, I read something in the paper yesterday that kind of put the different or another image of engineering. They're talking about the dam up at Vicito Reservoir up near Durango, and there was a real nice article about what they're doing there. But I saw this paragraph. I've got to read it to you. I am an engineer, and nobody gets into engineering because they're super good with people. I don't do the fluffy stuff. Okay, so I'm representing that group. Okay, next. This is the historic civil engineering landmarks in New Mexico. There are 5, and I'm pleased to see the years that they were doing this. I'm pleased to be here to represent that. Back up. Go the other way, because there's one called Elephant Butte Dam. I'm the one that nominated that way back in 1973. You know that, how many years ago was that? That's a few. I was also president of the New Mexico section of ASCE, and I didn't mention that when I was making jokes about it. But our organizations some states have a couple of sections, big states have maybe more, but we have organizations called sections. New Mexico by itself is a section. And so all of the civil engineers that belong to ASCE are in the New Mexico section. And so I have during that period of the 70s, I was the president of the New Mexico section from 1974 to 1975. So I'm still doing history 50 years later. Now, just to show you, the civil engineers have landmarks, and this is the one for Elephant Butte Dam. Now, this was put down by the headquarters below the dam. You can see the dam in the background. Unfortunately, with 9/11, people couldn't get down there to see our landmark. So it's been moved up near a highway. But anyway, so this is what we expect to have for Route 66 at a place that we have to negotiate where to put. Hopefully, I have a place in Albuquerque in mind. So anyway, next. We have our civil engineering. Oh, by the way, in about 18 minutes, somebody wave at me. I'll do like Jenna did. That's good. because I know that I'm going to be pushing the time limit. I get busy with some things here later on. Anyway, this is the big picture of the ASCE Civil Engineering Landmark Program. And you can see that we increase public appreciation. We're looking for engineers to appreciate their profession. We're encouraging the preservation of significant historic civil engineering works. And we're trying to foster the inclusion of this information in guidebooks. And so things we're doing are headed towards 2026. And those are the sorts of things that we're going to do. Okay. Next is, again, I said that groups have sections. Well, for Route 66, there are 8 states involved. And within ASCE, there are 10 sections. So there are 10 voting members of the nomination committee. I represent the one from New Mexico. I think it's kind of interesting. Kansas is listed as one of the states that has Route 66. Can anybody tell me about how many miles? 23.
Oh my God.
New Mexico has, now, Alyssa's going to have to explain where she gets her 604. I think I know it. But originally we had 506 miles. And then with the shortcut I'm going to talk about, we're down to 399. Still about the longest stretch of Route 66 in any of the 8 states. Okay, this is the group of people in New Mexico that are part of the New Mexico section. And these are Conrad Keys is a former head of civil engineering at New Mexico State University. He is an ASCE distinguished member, and he's been real important in water resources in New Mexico through the years. He's a graduate of NMSU. Dr. Kenneth White was also head of CE. He was an interim dean of engineering, and he's been real active in the licensing of engineers, and he's been on the board, and he's had some distinguished recognition of that. And now I might point out, in one year, Conrad and I were on the same bowling team, and we had a hot night. I got high series, individual series for the year, and he got high gain for the year. So that was Conrad and I. Ken and I played handball together, and we took state consolation in handball one year. So anyway, I've got some of these friends up here. It doesn't stop there. We go down. Frank Kozaleski was a student of mine at New Mexico State. I was doing research on concrete in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And he followed along the subject of my thesis, and drove over with his wife Barbara from Gallup, and so I'm pleased to see Frank again. And he spent his life as a consultant and working with concrete, so he stuck with concrete for this whole 50 years, and I've kind of jumped around. Next is John Baker, who is the roadway inventory program manager for New Mexico DOT. And I haven't seen Gary. I hope Gary's here. Is Gary Kitchen here? Ah, good. Okay. Gary took his master's under Ken White, and he is the state bridge load rating engineer. And he's been an invaluable ally to me because I have drawings of the Central Avenue underpass of 1937 and of the bridge across the Rio Grande in 1930. So thanks to Gary, I have that. Anytime I need something from the highway department, I've been able to contact him, and I get a quick response. And I told him, if you come, I'll introduce you, and I'm happy to see you again. Okay. Congress on December 23rd, 2020. How many of you know about this? Probably not too many. Why would Melissa know? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Congress passed something, and we don't know much about it. But essentially, this kind of points out some of the things. But again, celebrate the anniversary that appropriately honors the Mother Road. And so that's what we're doing. And I won't go through the details of what all they're doing or we're doing. Next. And the commission is made up of 15 members, 7 members appointed by the President of the United States, and a total of 8 members representing the 8 states through which Route 66 passes. And in New Mexico, the New Mexico member of this commission is Jen Paul Schroer, who is the New Mexico Secretary of Tourism. Okay, New Mexico section. So this is where we're at. These are some of the things we're doing. I'm not going to spend time on it. It's just good things to support Route 66, and you can take a look at it if you want. I want to go to the next slide because I think there's probably more immediate information that will apply to a lot of you. And we have a website for our nomination, and this are the 10 people. Now, that's 10 civil engineering sections, plus the center is Annie Matchin, who is the leader of the group. So there are 11 of us that are going to be pushing the nomination for Route 66 for this National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark Award. And as I say, it's different in that it's a highway, whereas I had that list before, Elephant Butte Dam and the Stream Gate Station and different places are projects. We're trying to nominate a whole highway. And so things are different. And so we have websites within this. And so this is the website address for the nomination of Route 66 for the National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark. Now, if you get to that, then you're going to say, what do I do next? Well, if you look under nomination team, you'll see this little screen here. And once you get to the nomination team, then you go down and you'll find my name if you happen to remember it. And at the bottom right here is a little button. If you push it, it opens up the world in New Mexico. So you'll find everything's there. So there, the listing over here under table of contents, these are hot sites. There's a lot of graphics, a lot of stuff. So there's an introduction, there's an interactive map where you can touch some place and you can get information about that place. And so it's really alive. The New Mexico section formally nominated Route 66 for this award. So that's there. There's publications and presentations. There's a listing of the buildings and bridges that are on the National Register of Historic Places, key personnel, I'll talk about that later, and the others. So then there are 3 other listings in our website. So it's a pretty active website. There's a state maps index. So if you go to that, you can link to town and see what they've got relative to Route 66. If you go to the bridge database, you'll find links to bridges. Somebody has traveled Route 66 from one state line to the other and stopped at every culvert, and every time there was anything that looked like a bridge, took a picture of it. I mean, there's a bunch of 300 or something like that. So that's there. And then the last one, and I'm going to get a smile here in a minute, is that we have a link to the New Mexico Route 66 Association. So we have a link to Melissa's entire association website. So all of the information she has, we have a link to it. Okay, now I want to save some time to get into talking about the shortcuts and some of the things that us civil engineers get to talking about. So anyway, big picture, I'm going to talk about the saving of 107 miles, and I'm also going to talk about some key personnel. So if you go to the next, I'll go through some maps. And this is a map showing Route 66 in August of 1926. That's when Route 66 was formally approved. Now, before that, it was New Mexico, or it was US 60. But they went through a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not going to go through the history of it. But essentially, we came up with this. But the thing that most people don't know about is that we have US 470. People were thinking about a shortcut way back in the 20s. Governor and Clyde Tingley were a couple. And James French was the district engineer, was the highway engineer. And so in the last minute, they slipped in this little road from Willard up through Moriarty. Actually, this goes up to about a mile or half a mile north of where Moriarty was in those days, and then goes over and comes down into Albuquerque to 4th and Central. Well, so this was all approved back then. So you'll see now Route 66 comes along the green like this over to near Las Vegas to Romeroville, over to Santa Fe, down Albuquerque, Los Lunas, and over like that. So that's the way we looked in August of 1926. Now, the way what French did is he knew that if you listed your road on the 7% that he had for the state, he could get extra money. He could get money, 50% for construction for anything on that road. And so he pushed this US 470. I've gone through the highway department or the commission minutes. There's very little mention of US 470. So it's just one of those things. I think they slipped in the last minute and got it. And so that's what we work with. Next. Okay, this is kind of what I want to emphasize. Not everybody talks about the Santa Rosa Laguna shortcut. And we kind of wave our arms at it, do things like that. But essentially, I want to define it. So the shortcut is made up of two cutoffs. The one is the Santa Rosa cutoff, which saved 90 miles. And it went from Santa Rosa to a place north of Moriarty, actually. And that was 69 new miles. 27 of it was virgin miles. And then US 470 from Moriarty to Central and 4th. The Laguna cutoff saved 17 miles, and this was proposed by Clyde Tingley in June of 1925, a year before Route 66 was even thought of. But he had sent a letter to the governor nominating this. So the Laguna cutoff, which he proposed, was started, and it went from 4th and Central across the Rio Grande and to where it goes over near Korea. So anyway, so that's the part. Now I'll show the pictures a little bit more. Okay, this is the key to it. So you notice in that other one, 470 went like this. Oh, by the way, I'm not in error by calling this US 70. Initially, Highway 60, as we know it, was Highway 70 for about 5 years, from 1926 to 1931. And then they changed it. I'll show you in the next slide. But so we have 70. So 470 is just kind of like they do, is they like to say it's tied to US 70. And anyway, they constructed this in a month. They cleared and graded it. They had to get it to about an 18-foot wide pavement. They had to clear 27 miles of pinon trees between Moriarty and Pines Corners. And so this was all done in a month of December. And two crews started. One started in Santa Rosa, the other started in Moriarty. Each crew during the month of December had to clear and grade about a mile. Think of that. That was hardship. There were sabotage, there were weather, there were all kinds of problems. There's a whole other program on that we don't have time for. So here we are, 1931. Clyde Tingley and new Republican Governor Dillon approved the construction of the Central Avenue Bridge, and it was built in 1930. So all of a sudden, the federal government had a road across the Rio Grande in Albuquerque along Central Avenue. And Central Avenue is kind of in a floodplain, so you had to do extra work. So anyway, so 1931. Well, notice in 1931, this is now US 60, and now this became New Mexico 41, which it still is. It's from Willard up through Moriarty up to Galisteo. But there was this segment here that they retained as US 366, which goes from Moriarty to 4th and Central. So that's 1931. Next. And then this was the Laguna cutoff. the Laguna cutoff really couldn't come into play until you could get across the Rio Grande and the Rio Puerco. So Tingley and Dillon, the governor, got the bridge across the Rio Grande. That got the federal government to say, okay, we're going to go with the shortcut from Santa Rosa to Laguna. And so they did that in 1931. Okay, thank you. I'm not the square I wanted to be. Could you reset your clock? Okay, all right. Well, I better, sorry, all right. 1931 to 1933, they put in the bridge. I'll show you a picture of it. And the next slide. This is now the shortcut. You see the old one? That's the 506 miles. And this is the 399 across the state.
How do people get across the Rio Grande on Central before?
The Morelos Bridge. And there was some fighting over whether Route 66 should go through over that bridge. So that we don't have time for that. I've already gotten. All right, now I need to talk about four things next. 5. Okay, so the shortcut. I'm not going to spend time with this since I'm out of time, but I do want to talk about the next one. You'll find it's there. This is the Central Avenue Bridge, 1930. I told you the significance of it. This was the key bridge. Now, notice how long it is, 1,350 feet long. Why? Because of the floodplain, because there were no dams between Albuquerque and the headwaters up near Crete. And so we had to have the levee, which is still there, and talk about it. Now, notice here that I've got it. This is going to be documented in La Crónica de Nuevo Mexico later this year. But I also got notice this week, and Joe McKinney's here. He was on the commission. But the City Landmark Commission has approved this as a site crossing for a city landmark recognition, which will put in, well, we have to get approval by the city council. So we can't celebrate yet, but we crossed one major hurdle, and Joe, thanks. Well, I'll be gone, but you'll be happy to see that letter, and it'll get around. So anyway, next slide. This is the one, the 1933 bridge across the Rio Puerco, which sits out there by the casino. The funny thing is, we're using the Central Avenue Bridge. We're using the underpass. We can't get a lot of recognition for them. This is on the historic list of National Register of Historic Places and all kinds of good things here. But there it sits. But it finally gave the federal government the road that they could get from east to west or west to east. And they then paved it. So Route 66 was paved late in 1937 to 1938 in that time frame. That the shortcut that I showed you was paved as Route 66, and from then on, Route 66. So this is the underpass Central, which is the last thing that we need to get recognized. But I do have it documented, I've written up, and it's going to be in the La Crónica later this year. But now the next one is one that people didn't know about, didn't think about, and I think I've got it worked out. That this building is the Rosenwald building, which was built in 1910, and it's one of the first buildings, well, the first building, a major building in Albuquerque that was built out of reinforced concrete. So as a civil engineer, that's great. Think of that, 1910. I know what they knew about concrete in 1910, and it's amazing that it's still there. Okay. Now, the building is still there. It's now a police substation, but it has a unique distinction. It is the only building on the National Register that was on Route 66 north-south and Route 66 east-west. Think of it. It's the only one. And so I've been working with the State Preservation Office, and I think we're going to get that into the citation of the National Register to recognize the civil or the Route 66 contributions or recognition of that. So I've got that going. And then also McClellan Store. Some of you I won't say old time Albuquerquers, but some of you who were around a few years ago may remember McClellan's. It was there to 1977. And it was the 5 and 10 type store on Route 66 from 1927 to 1977. So it has a tremendous history on Route 66. So we need to get that recognized. Okay, I've got 3 more slides. These are key personnel, and I'm not going to have the time that I want to talk about all of them. But what I've done is I've gone through civil engineers, and you'll see that I have MASCE. So these are people that are members of the Civil Engineering Society. So just see that. So we have James French, who is a longtime state engineer and highway department engineer. And unfortunately, he passed away in October of 1926. Wow. Just after Route 66 got started in August. Think of that. But he's the one that set up all of these things that we're now building on. E.B. Bale was a district engineer under Governor Hannett. And but since they were changing governors in 1926, 27, he knew he was out of a job. And there was also the fear that the workers would get fired as you change from a Democratic to a Republican. It worked both ways, okay? So don't let me point fingers. But the philosophy in those days where you change your workers for the highway department between one governor, if you change the party, another. So these people that worked that 30 days to get those 69 miles in, they were told that this played a joke on the new governor. He doesn't want this shortcut. Let's get it done. And so that's part of Hannett's joke. It's a little different version, but that's what E.B. Bale talked about. So there's some writing about that. Anyway, Frank Kimball was a city engineer for Albuquerque, 27 to 31. Well, with the new governor, he was also replaced. So the district highway engineer changed with the governors if they changed parties. So we have Frank Kimball, but he's the one on the first day of the job. They had to have the shortcut finished on January 1st, 1927. That's a Saturday. He really couldn't get on the job until Monday. So he got there on the 3rd. And all of a sudden, they were driving cars between Moriarty and Santa Rosa. And so he accepted it, and he got the governor to accept it. So this is all part of the history. Okay. Other stuff, other people, bridge designers, the fellow that designed the bridge, Central Avenue Bridge. Next. Okay, we've got a bunch of people. The underpass was on the highway, or on the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad. So that underpass was designed by engineers working for the railway. The highway department accepted it. Tingley got the money from the federal government, and so that's how we got the underpass. So there are other people here. Burton Dwyer, he was one of the team leaders for the shortcut between Moriarty and essentially Klein's Corners. This is the part where they had 27 miles that had never been opened up for highways before. He was head of that. He wasn't even working for the highway department. He was the county engineer for Grant County. And he was brought on, and later he joined the highway department in 35, and he became the highway engineer from 1939 to 1952. And then Kelly is the engineer on the overpass. Okay, 2 more. A.T. Hannett, former mayor of Gallup, on the Highway Commission, 1922 through 25 when he became governor, and he didn't get elected. Now we know what some people do when they don't get reelected. Well, he says, all right, I want you all to finish this road in the month of December. And that happened. And that's part of our heritage. So anyway, that's Governor Hannett. Dillon was a Republican who came in, and one of the neat things he did is he didn't fire the workers. They all expected it. He came in, he says, you guys did a good job. And so he kept them on. Now, they did change the district engineer, but the workers didn't get, so that's one of the neat things. Charles Springer was a Republican who was on the chairman of the Highway Commission for 14 years, 12 years, whatever it is, under different Republican and Democratic governors and did fine and really did a lot for getting Route 66 taken care of. Okay, here's the one that Melissa's waiting for. Next. Okay. This is what Janet said about the Route 66 Association. And as you know, I'm a member of that association. This bolo tie that I'm wearing, I bought from the person who started the association in 1989, Judy Snow. And I bought this in the 90s, and there are 10 of these, and it's something I'm very proud of. Now, the third one is kind of important. If we civil engineers are going to reach our goals, we're going to have to expand because we provided the groundwork, if you will, for whatever was the magic on Route 66. And so I hope I introduced what we did and what we did. So now it's my pleasure to introduce, now this next one, you could do this for background for Melissa. So, oh yeah, we'll have time for questions, and I suspect there may be one or two. Okay, Melissa, take over.
That's a tough act to follow. Hello, everyone. Glad to see so many shining faces here today. My name is Melissa Beasley-Lee, and I am the president of the New Mexico Route 66 Association. I have been president since 2016, although I stepped into my role early in 2015. So, and I do not do PowerPoint presentations. I haven't done those for years, so you'll have to just bear with me here. Do we have the, we can have black screen or whatever it was Roger wanted. I follow whatever Roger asked for. So I'm just going to share with you a little bit about what the association does, our activities that we have. First is our annual motor tour. This typically happens the weekend following Memorial Day weekend, so it fluctuates a little. Unfortunately, we are not having the tour this year because we are very excited to have the official New Mexico Route 66 Association Visitors Center and Museum opening up in Tucumcari. So our all of our efforts are going toward that, getting that ready for you guys to come and experience. It's going to be great. The next thing, as Roger mentioned, is our New Mexico Route 66 magazine. We do produce that quarterly and deliver that to various businesses along Route 66, as well as all of our visitor centers in the Route 66 I-40 corridor, as well as the I-25 going up to Santa Fe to that visitor center. We also have quarterly meetings that are held in various areas. In fact, our next meeting is next week. If any of you would like to join us, it'll be in Grants. So it'll be next Saturday. And following those meetings, we always have some kind of activities where we can learn more about grants, for instance, next week in the surrounding areas. So that's always fun. And we have a new program that we introduced in the fall called the Ambassador Program. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. It's now become part of our Centennial activities leading up and through 2026. So I'll get into that in a minute. The association is currently positioning itself to assist businesses and communities throughout our 604 miles of Route 66 in preparation for the 2026 Centennial and leading up to it with the following goals and activities. First and foremost, we're concerned with public safety. And of course, we want people to come here and have a good time, but we want them to do it safely. And One of the things we're most concerned about is drivers keeping their eyes on the road and not on their maps. So the first thing we're going to be considering and discussing with NMDOT and the Roundhouse is the signage that we currently have throughout our state. Amongst all of the 8 states, ours is one of the states that has the least signage for our visitors. We do have the historic signs up and around. However, some of those have been stolen. And we just like to have some in more areas than what we originally planned as well. That way you're going down the road. If any of you have tried to follow Route 66 and be on the actual route, it can get very confusing because it'll turn left or right at no notice whatsoever. And that's where you get people wandering all over the road with one hand and looking at their map, trying to figure out where they are. So we're hoping to up that signage a bit. The second is the shields painted on the roadways. I don't know if any of you have traveled Route 66 in Edgewood, but we are very proud of the shields that are down on the highway out there. They are painted on the highway. You probably see one, it's very famous, and it's used all the time, even for us, but it's actually in California. So yes, the big white painted Route 66 shield on the road. This does have to be done in agreement and partnership with the New Mexico Department of Transportation. So we will have to have that approved, but that is one of our other goals. That way, when someone does steal the sign, you still have a shield that helps you stay on the road. And also some of the other states like to put those in front of historic properties. So that is an easy way of telling someone, hey, you need to stop here and pull over and check out this place. So that's our second for public safety. Our next goal is tourism. I would really like to work with the tourism department. We have been trying to work with the tourism department for several years. We did come out with a map that some of you still proudly own that shows all of the mileage of Route 66 throughout the state. If you go to the Santa Fe Visitor Center, you'll see it under the glass when you walk up to talk with whoever's working the desk at that time. That map you see under there was created and printed by the New Mexico Route 66 Association. And unfortunately, a few years back, before I was president, that grant funding for that was pulled. So we were no longer able to get that produced, but we're wanting to get something similar to that back up again so that we can give that to our visitors and interested visitors. Another thing is a Route 66 trip guide. If any of you ever travel through Oklahoma, whether you're on Route 66 or not, go into the visitor center, ask for their Route 66 trip guide. It is beautiful. It highlights every town along Route 66 in Oklahoma. And that is what I'm using as a guideline and a concept for what I would like to create for New Mexico. That would highlight every town in New Mexico, historic points about that location, places you might want to stop and take photographs or eat or stay, everything you need to know. It will also, I should have brought that water up here with me. My lovely husband and one of our board members of the Route 66 Association. But we'll highlight each of the towns plus historic spots. Thank you, honey, along the route. Plus, we would like those trip guides, and keep in mind there's specifically Route 66 trip guides. They would also highlight a list of events throughout the state. for 2024, 2025, and 2026, leading through the Centennial. And hopefully by that time, the State Tourism Department will see the value in that Route 66 trip guide and continue into our next 100 years. The next thing is a calendar of events. We on the New Mexico Route 66 Association would like to create, and we are in the midst of this, of creating a calendar of events on our website so that everyone planning a Route 66 event can see what else is going on around them so that they do not plan something that might be going on the other side of the state, or maybe their neighboring town has something going on and they want to work in conjunction with them. So we're going to help them do that, plus of course add their event to that list as well. For other Centennial activities, we are currently working and have been for the past several years with the National Park Service, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and the Route 66 Road Ahead Partnership on the following projects. At the Ambassador Program that I mentioned earlier, this is locating potential properties to restore, preserve, or just spruce up a little bit. And there are possible grants for some of these properties. And we also have a major paint sponsor who is working with us that they want to provide the paint and supplies for these properties to be repainted. So our volunteers will need to clean the property around it first, and then we'll have a team come in. And I believe that the National Trust for Historic Preservation even has a team that is interested in coming in and helping us paint those buildings back to what they originally looked like. So that's pretty exciting. The next one is called the Legacy Program. And this is a program that elevates the stories of current notable sites and communities, as well as sites and communities that were previously underrepresented. We call those our hidden legacies of Route 66. And some of you may have heard about the Women on Route 66 that Katrina Parks we had at the Guild. Sadly, we had to turn people away, but she is coming back this fall, and we're very excited about that. And we've also gained an additional showing in Tucumcari at the Odeon Theater, so we're working that out. But some other hidden legacies would be our Native American community, our Latinx community, Asian, African American, LGBTQ, veterans, and our immigrants' stories. And we would like to reach out, we will be reaching out to communities requesting donations of Route 66 historic items. That would be things like maps, advertisements, family films, photos, any logs and records that business owners might have had of previous businesses along the route. And basically, what we're wanting to do is leave previous generations information to leave for the future generations. And that's one thing we really need to start asking our neighbors and friends. And when people pass on, some of those younger generations, they just see Route 66 as another road. It's like, what's the big deal? And so, they throw these things away and we're crying, no, we want these items, please, please. So it's very, very important, especially with buildings and sites that we're losing. What we really have are those stories. And along with those stories, we will be recording elder stories of the route. So anyone who has very prominent history, we will be providing them a booth. It's within the museum. in Tucumcari at the New Mexico Route 66 Association Museum. We're going to have an actual small recording studio with a video where they can choose to only have maybe, we don't like to be on video most of the time, so that's fine, but we want to get either or both. And just listen to their stories, let them sit in a comfortable surroundings and just share their stories with us so that we can record those and have those for future generations as well. So that's going to be part of the Fast TV Studios recording booths that we set up for the museum. The next thing is, was anyone familiar with, in the early 2000s, Hampton Inn had a Save a Landmark program. They, all across the 8 states, Hampton Inn sponsored these signs, and 2 places here in New Mexico had those, being Kelly's Brew Pub, which is now the Italian restaurant in Nob Hill. Cheese. Love that place. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. The sign erected was to inform people that it was once the Jones Motor Company. The second one was Joseph's Bar and Grill in Santa Rosa. So they also had these signs. All of the 8 associations, we've all met and decided that we want to continue that legacy. And so we are going to be replacing the older 2 signs with new signs. And these are going to be roadside attraction signage. We will be replacing that Hampton Inn landmark with our Route 66 Association logo, and also offering signs to all interested Route 66 establishments throughout New Mexico if they would like to have one as well. So we'll be working on that. Let's see. So that's what we're working on currently, because those are the things that are going to take the most time. But as we go through this year, we will be updating more of the things that the association is going to be offering and helping out leading up to that Centennial. And currently, with our federal Centennial Commission, I am a board member on the Route 66 Road Ahead Partnership. And that was the reason I was the only one who really probably knew about this bill that was passed, because we introduced that bill. And we're very happy that we had the Centennial celebration of 2026 recognized nationally. And one thing I'm not going to go into today, we don't have a lot of time on that, but I will tell you that you might keep your eyes open for National Historic Trails recognition. We introduced the 2 of those bills at the same time. And it passed unanimously through a few chains. And unfortunately, COVID kind of messed that all up. So we do know that it is favored very highly in the House, and we look for that to be passed by the end of the year. So National Historic Trail recognition. So I think that'll also help for the bridge nominations, and also will help to get that a little extra boost. They do the federal, I'm not going to go over all the members of the Federal Centennial Commission because Roger's already taken care of that. Thank you. But there will be specific activities and projects taking place in collaboration with all 8 states. And that information can be found on a website called route66centennial.org. And you don't need to bother writing that down if you don't want to, because we will have a link on our website here in the next month or 2 with more details about that. So you can go to that link as well. But let's see. And I guess that leads me to my most exciting project as president. dream of mine, and our preservation officer, who is not here today, Johnny Meyer, who is the owner of Classical Gas Museum in Embudo, New Mexico. How many have been to that museum? Okay, did you like it? Did anyone not like it? I guess that's easier to ask. Did anyone not like it? I mean, what's not to like about Classical Gas Museum? It's a wonderful place, and I'm very excited to say that Johnny and I worked for several years, going back and forth between Santa Rosa and Tucumcari and trying to make this museum a reality. So, basically, after I met my husband, he hired me to be the hostess of one of his shows, come on as a business partner and host Legends of Route 66 on Fast TV Network. We decided we were going to go through with another dream of Mike's, and that was having recording studios and movie studios. So we looked at a Kmart building in Tucumcari. And he said, that's it. This is the place. And so I kind of weaseled in there and said, honey, can I have a museum? So we have nearly 40,000 square feet. Is that? He knows all the exact numbers. The Kmart building in Tucumcari is 43 square feet. 43,000, sorry. That'd be a really small museum. It's a mini museum. 43,000 square feet, and 10,000 square feet of that is going to house the New Mexico Route 66 Association Museum and Visitor Center. It will be the official state visitor center. We're really excited to have it because I'm sure all of you are familiar with the song written by Bobby True, Get Your Kicks on Route 66. And in the first line, it says, if you ever plan to motor west. And as you motor west into New Mexico along the Mother Road, the first major town you enter is Tucumcari. And the New Mexico Route 66 Association sees Tucumcari as that perfect location for this museum and visitor center. So we're very excited about that. And along with that, we will have information about our entire state in New Mexico. And let's see, and yes, it's 604 miles. So just quickly, the 604 miles was taught to me when one of our previous presidents, Elmo Baca, who started our Main Street program throughout New Mexico. Well, before he went up to Santa Fe to take that position, he was the president of the Route 66 Association of New Mexico. And he's the one who did all that paperwork. And proudly, we were the first Route 66 state to become a national scenic byway. And so I must say that I am trusting in Elmo Baca's knowledge of his research that it is 604 miles, and it is listed on the National Scenic Byway website. If you look up Route 66 in New Mexico, it will list 604 miles. So I am going to take a guess that that also includes other alignments. Because the fun about traveling Route 66 is going and finding all the different alignments. And so that's always what brings people back. You know, they went over to this alignment, but no, there's this other cutoff, and we've got to go see that. So, and that's the fun of exploring Route 66 and its history. So there's your 604. So if anyone wants to debate that, please contact Elmo Baca. He is in Las Vegas, and I can give you his contact information. Well, you can just, go to the Indigo Theater, and he'll be there. So let me see here. That leads us to, okay, I told you about, it's Johnny and I actually are going to be working in partnership with, Johnny Meyer and I will be working with the National Park Service Route 66 Corridor Program Director, Kaisa Bertulli. and as well as the National Trust for Historic Preservation. As we start curating this museum, we want to make sure it's top notch. We want to make sure that we are able to receive grants to further the museum for generations to come. So we are very excited about that. And let's see. I think that's all about the museum. And I know we're kind of running a little bit behind. So I guess with that, I'll just open it up to questions for both Roger and I. So Roger, if you want to come back up here and join me. Okay. Is it for me or for Roger?
It doesn't matter. And we'll take official questions till about a quarter after, and then anyone who wants to stay and continue the dialogue, fine. And when people want to step out, that's fine. So is Roger just?
Yeah, he's right here. Okay.
So
okay.
I thought it was a museum.
West Central.
West on I-25. There's a restaurant / museum. What's the difference? And what's
on
I-40? Yeah, I-40.
The one on there's one on I-40 or
It's well.
Are you talking about the West Central?
Yeah.
On 9 Mile Hill?
Yeah.
Okay, so well, it did start out as a museum, and Johnny Meyer and I and my husband, also a board member, did meet with the West Central Development community about that. And basically about less than 10% of that building space was going to be devoted to a Route 66 museum and visitor center. And we felt that that was not enough space for a true visitor center as well as a museum. And I was at the groundbreaking of that and very excited to work with them. I gave Clarissa my card, I introduced myself, and unfortunately we just, we didn't get any communication with them. And it's very sad. We've been an association now for 34 years. We are a wealth of knowledge. We have another 22, I believe now. We've had Route 66 associations internationally. So we also get information as to who's coming and why and what they really want to see. And of course, we also have such a treasure of history of Route 66. So we're really hoping to work with the city of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County on that building, but unfortunately they weren't interested in working with us. And like I said, we just didn't feel that it housed enough room for a magazine. It has been publicly stated that at that meeting, I felt that that building was a very much deserved community center that is needed out on the west side. They do need to be represented, but we had to step away from that project and wish them all the best. So, okay.
For each of the funding purchase that came out.
Well, right now, as you see, I don't have a wedding ring. So I kind of made an agreement with my husband that that's what I really wanted to see. And so right now, that is under the umbrella of my husband and I's property of the Fast TV Network Studios. And we will be renting out the property, the 10,000 square feet, to the museum once that we can establish grant funding for that.
So you're looking for grant?
We are looking for grant funding. Yes. And
what Fast TV is, I'm not familiar.
Are you sure you won't come up here? Please, please. My husband is the best representative for Fast TV Network. Thankfully, he works very hard on Fast TV Network in order to let me volunteer my time for the Route 66 Association and on the Road Ahead Partnership working up to the Centennial. So I will let him introduce the Fast TV Network Studios.
Fast TV Network Studios was a dream of our other partner, Rob Wagner, and I. We started an online digital TV network, which originally was based on my racing career. We were doing racing shows. But I came to the realization that I was traveling Route 66 all the time to get to all these races for 30 years. And we were cruising down the road one day and said, hey, we should do a show about Route 66. So we started Legends of Route 66 and it took off. And it's because of that show that Fast TV Network was allowed to do a whole bunch of other shows. And we don't have a lot of time today, so I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version. But we have got a lot of advertising revenue. We went on to Roku. We're on Amazon Fire TV as well. And we've obtained funding privately through our own corporation to build the studios. We're also building one in Carrizozo, New Mexico, which is a little bit smaller than the one in Tucumcari. But because I happen to love this girl and the Route 66 Association, and Mr. Johnny Meyer is an amazing person with an amazing collection, we decided that there's enough revenue from the studio rental business in this state that we could support the museum while it grows its legs. Yes, they're looking for grants. Yes, they're looking for donations, but the museum is going to open whether they find those grants or not, and it's going to be funded by our studios. So that's the short version.
Hi, my family was me as a 5-year-old, moved to Albuquerque in 1947, and we spent the night at the El Rancho Hotel at the corner of Rio Grande River in Central, and never left. We were on our way to Phoenix, we didn't make it. And my husband retired from Los Alamos National Lab and moved to Montana, later Fort Collins. We've been about 23 years. We moved back in January of 2021. And in 2018, for the first time, I drove from Park Central Hotel east down Memory Lane, and I was shocked at what had happened to Central 66. And I keep wondering what people are going to think about when they come through to the west and they see what's happened is what can be done. Not a whole lot before the Centennial starts, but Roger Zimmerman has done a lot of work trying to get the west side of 66 going. What's happening to the east side? It's really out there.
Yeah, unfortunately, the development along Central Avenue is out of our hands. We do support the preservation of Route 66 businesses along the way. I will say that with our previous project, the Albuquerque Rapid Transit, my name is on both lawsuits that we filed against the city of Albuquerque to stop that development. And as you see, unfortunately, it failed. So we do try everything we can in our power for the preservation. But unfortunately, the reality is once, number one, once someone purchases a building or a property, it is theirs. We have no legal way of stopping that. And when it comes to something like the art project, that is controlled by city and possibly county entities as well. And the harsh reality is that we can just try and kind of be the voice of reason, but government officials don't really like the voice of reason. So
I actually sent an email to a proposal to the governor and to the legislature and the non-bill association, neighborhood association, with my proposal with billions of dollars to spend this year in Santa Fe. Could something be done about art? And the answer from Pat Bates, I guess, was there was a $100 million grant given, and that was have to be repaid.
Yes.
So unfortunately, we're stuck.
Yes, we're stuck with it. I've been working on a lot of other things since then, so I can't remember what the time limit on that was. I believe it was 10 years that we have to keep that in place. Otherwise, is that correct? 10 years? Yeah, or else we do have to pay that money back, yes.
I have a question online, Janet.
Okay.
Coming from Roger, what's the official designation of 66? How many different lines were there?
The question again?
How many different realignments were there in Route 66 designation?
Just in New Mexico?
What?
You'll have to ask El Mubaka.
No, I know how he figured it. I can easily do it within 7 miles. And there's a 7.
Just wants to know.
How many different alignments there are of 66 throughout?
But there was a major realignment, which I talked about, which is 107 miles. Now, there can be minor. There were 2 major alignments. There are some around towns and things like that, like in Gallup. Route 66 went along one avenue one way and went through another avenue another way. Is that a realignment? So there are all kinds of things like that. And so sometimes they bypass and they do things. I don't have any feel for that. The major designation of US 66 in 1926 went through Santa Fe. The official designation of Route 66 in 1937, in October of 1937, went through Albuquerque east-west and went along Central Avenue. Now, there's some things out at Moriarty. Now, if you know Moriarty, it was about a half a mile south of where it's at now, where we know it. Historic 66 is where the road came in. That's where the shortcut started. That was a filling station, and they eventually put in a thing there. And then they put in a little community that was there for about 18 years. And I have to look at my notes, and I can't remember the name of it. But the Moriarty just grew into it. So, but the alignment was always north of Moriarty. Bob?
Oh, wait, no.
You're waiting on
I
mine?
was acknowledged that.
I didn't hear.
You're going in this 1 minute. So as, I don't know if I'll be present as we plan our programs in 2026 for the Historical Society, but I can definitely see a theme coming where a lot of our programs that year can be looking at businesses, people, engineering, yada, yada. So that's just what I'm saying. Okay, my question, Roger, has to do with that Central Ave underpass. It is essentially the same structure that it started out as in 1937.
7.
I mean, the same concrete.
The same drainage system is there, been there since 1937. There's a manhole that's been there since 1937. The same width is there. If you look at the height of the thing in 1937 drawing says, I think, 14 foot 1 inches. If you look at the sign on that underpass, it says 13 foot 11 inches. So the thing that's changed the most, and this is where the historic preservation people have had problems, is the fence over the underpass. It doesn't look like the old fence of 1937, but the major thing has changed. Now, how many of you knew that the Santa Fe Railroad raised the tracks 7 feet to have that underpass the way it is, so that First Street and Central wouldn't have to be messed up? So this was all part of what they negotiated to get that underpass where it's at. But the structure, the timber piles are still there, the footings are still there, the columns are still there. As far as I can tell, the bridge structure is still.
That big cut. They happen to be the library and special collections library. We were tasked with the poetry event, and then 266 was given an idea of broad scope of things that happened. The highlight of which was Michael Wallace talking to the breakfast at giving a speech about the road so Route 66. Very good. I'm hoping that the 2026 will have that kind of service. It was really great support towards church. They did so much. Just also mention I had a postcard of the showing the motorists waiting for his week.
Yeah, we do hope to have numerous events going on throughout Albuquerque as well as throughout New Mexico like that. Personally, Michael Wallace is one of my mentors, and when I first came out onto 66 in Illinois, I met him. And he is on our Centennial Commission. We made sure he had a seat at the Centennial Commission. So he will be assisting in those activities in all 8 states, including here. So, and anyone interested in helping us with some of these events or, we always love partnering with other associations for these events, and we really want to make it a great party. Real quick, I just kind of wanted to let you know when I came on as president, there wasn't a lot of activity, and our board of directors it was not as strong as it is today. Now that I've become president, we do have a very strong board of directors as well as an advisory board. And these are all things that are written within our bylaws. So that was the first thing I did. So we have been building up our board of directors. I've specifically chosen some board of directors from various parts. We have a board of director in Gallup. We have one in Grants, we have one in Tucumcari. So we are strategically placing those, and we do have one seat still available on our board of directors. So if you know of someone that maybe is in the Santa Fe area, maybe down in the Las Lunas area, somewhere like that, we would welcome a new additional board of director to fill that spot, so that we can start really ramping up again for the celebrations of the Centennial.
Can you talk quickly about, you have so much national exposure, can you talk about what we need to do to have a good showing as a broader piece of the Centennial for the whole country? Because I know we're obviously, from the mayor, the governor, you guys, everybody thinks they're doing their own celebration. So it's a little tricky right now, but also want to let you know that you're welcome to the Basils and Rosenwald building for your community.
Who are you?
Thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you. He's nobody. Nobody.
The Basils, I know the Basils and the Rosenwald building, so if she needs to use them for her Centennial.
Thank you very much, Carlos. I appreciate that. So yes, I get this question a lot, so I'm really not surprised that you showed up and had to be the one to ask me that in front of all these people. Thank you very much, Carlos. It has been very confusing for people, and people are getting really anxious, including myself. I'm ready to celebrate the Centennial, and I want to get things rolling. And then unfortunately, you know, COVID got in the way. Like I said, we were rolling. We had the bill passed for the Centennial Commission. Unfortunately, we did not have the board members appointed at that time. And in case any of you are not aware, those board of directors were finally nominated at the end of 2022. So we do have them in place now, and they're doing the final arrangements. And honestly, I don't know what the technicalities of that is, but here in, I believe, May, they're going to have their next meeting, and that is their first true organizational meeting, and we can get things rolling. And yes, it is a unfortunately, it's kind of like a miscommunication in New Mexico, and it's gone on in all the other states as well, that everyone is excited and wanting to do their own thing. And we are trying to get different municipalities to come together and work together so that we can actually create some great events in partnership with each other. Now, the Road Ahead Partnership, which is the ones who helped form that commission, like I said, I'm a board member. I'm the New Mexico State representative for the Road Ahead Partnership. And so our chair, Bill Thomas, he also sits on the federal commission board. And so he relays all information to us immediately that we will provide to the public. But as it is right now, I mean, we can't go into any city entity and say, hey, you know, you're going to have to wait, and you're going to have to wait for what the Federal Centennial Commission says. And, you know, gosh, I wish we could do that, but we cannot do that. And so we're just hoping that these city entities, these state entities can all work together and recognize that we are working not just for the fun of Route 66, but that's a huge economic impact that it's going to make on all of those businesses and all of those communities leading up to the Centennial and after the Centennial. So we're really hoping that we can work together and that the funds will be actually used for Route 66 events.
And that was, when was I-40 completed? And prior to that, I guess given the route shortcut and the route without the shortcut, how many hours would it have taken somebody to drive from Tucumcari to Galloway?
Back then or right now?
No, back then, because now obviously I can tell you.
Well,
I think
and again, it's without I-40, for instance, just Route 66, how long would it have taken to go from the eastern end to the western end of the state?
I don't think I can answer the question entirely, but I think I can give you an idea. The 90 miles that was saved from Santa Rosa to Albuquerque saved about 2.5 hours. Remember, that was dirt roads.
Yeah, that's right.
So you could extrapolate that distance. It's about 69 and 45, whatever that is. That's how far it was from Santa Rosa to Albuquerque on the shortcut. And then 90 miles further to Santa Fe.
Let's say somebody was going from Oklahoma to California. Of course, it happened during the Dust Bowl. I don't think, was I-40 there? When did
I-40 was about 1973.
When?
About 1973, somewhere plus or minus a year. Seemed like that's about when it came through Albuquerque.
You do have one final question.
Okay, I'm sorry, thanks.
Well, we have Roger active. I have a question. When I was a kid, the streetcar tracks ran down the center. Can you tell me how long they lasted?
Yeah. 1904 to 1927, I think. I think that's pretty close. Well, now the rails were there for a long time. I remember them in the 50s, but the private industry took over bus system in around 1927, and then the city took over the bus system 60s.
1950.
50, okay. But the operating trolley that as I understood it was taken over around 1927, 28.
Just wondering how long they left the tracks in.
Well, that's something else. I don't know.
Well, let's do this. First of all, let's give a big round of applause. Each one of them will be getting an honorarium from the Historical Society in appreciation for speaking there. And those of you in the city, if you all are available, we'll just run down. Are you available to stay for a little bit more? Others that would like to ask more questions, just we'll make it very informal. And then we hope to see everybody on June the 18th, on Father's Day, to learn more about South Florida. And thank you for being part of us. Roger and Melinda will be, y'all are here. Melissa. Thank you. Okay.